Hey everybody, welcome to week 3 of the economics course. So I've got my scenery up here for the winter. Hopefully you're not experiencing snow, but anyway, it's just a pretty picture. So also for a little bit of inspiration here, those that know me by now, I kind of harp on making school part of everyday life instead of something extra you do. And I kind of repeat that a lot because sometimes judging from participation by some students, still hasn't sunk in yet. So that's why I keep harping on it. I use the example of the runners here, just because it's snowing, they don't quit. They keep going it every day. So you need to make sure you're doing your school every day and be stronger than your excuses. We all can come up with excuses on why we didn't do something. And oftentimes we have legitimate reasons versus excuses. I mean, certain things do happen in life. So those are, but uh, depending on where you're at in your program, so you're probably in the beginning stages here. You got a ways to go, but you need to stick to it. Get there. Don't let things get in the way. Last week, hope if you watched last week's video, I mentioned the naysayers. People say you can't do it. Things, those negative influences in your life. You got to get past those and stay focused because you have a gift right now of being able to go to school. A lot of people will never have that opportunity. And so this is something you want to do, and you're paying for it, and you need to stick to it and stay strong and get there. So there you go. There's this week's motivation. As far as last week's week 2, those of you that are in there in the discussions, good job on the discussion forum. Same thing on the homeworks. If you had any issues on the homeworks that I seen, I would have sent it back to you and say, let you know which ones are, you might have made errors on or missed, and have you resubmit depending on how poorly or badly you might have done on there. But so far so good for most of you. So, all right, and then moving into this upcoming week here, we have we're into week 3. Okay, so for our chapters, we got 3 chapters. First one is economic fluctuations and employment. So there's a lot of info here, and things you need to, is pay attention to definitions, concepts and so forth. Like there's a definition right there, and so this chapter pretty much goes over how GDP and unemployment and things like that work. The recessions. And one of the things, unemployment, that's one of the, thing. A lot of people get, and I just throw this in as extra. Here's a chart here, like going from 1948 to, like that one to 2010. All right, and so you go on a percentage rate. The other thing to keep in mind about percentages is when they look at these, they go back like 48, there was a whole lot less people back then than there are now. So when you look at how many people are unemployed, um, so for example, back in, like right here, there might have been, I don't know, 50,000 people employed, and today over here, there's 100,000. But when you when you compare it to the population, it's a percent of the population. So the actual numbers, might be very different. So anyway, that's why I threw that in there just for that, for sake. There's one other I was going to show you here. Well, let me show you this one. Okay, now here's one. This is like a current one up to of this year. So you see how the other thing to keep in mind. And I don't know how many of you realize this anymore, especially with the recent political elections and things like that, is what you hear is not necessarily the truth. Even on unemployment stats, because things like on unemployment statistics, they can look good. In reality, they're not good because, like when people file for unemployment, generally you can only draw unemployment for 6 months. Then once you draw the unemployment, that 6 months is over, you're done. Okay, so you're off the books. So therefore, you're no longer unemployed because you're not drawing unemployment. So there's different ways that numbers cannot necessarily be truthful. So there's just different things that go into it. Um, People trying to get jobs but do not file unemployment because they're not qualified, because they work maybe a part-time job or something, but they didn't, there's nothing there for them to get because there's not enough paid into the program or something like. There's a lot of different variations on how that can be. So I just throw that in there because sometimes um, things can be twisted to where it was never really said. Um, or it's not true. So that's what I mean. Yeah, it's a good gauge, but not necessarily always a accurate gauge, as you would say. So anyway, just wanted to just throwing that in there for that. But all right, what else? Okay, oh yeah, chapters. Da, da, da. Okay, so that's chapter 10. Okay, so chapter 11 has to do with what they call classical economics. So here again, you got a lot of terminology, definitions, and so forth you need to be familiar with because there's a lot of things that go into economics as a system. Economics, some people call it capitalism versus socialism, communism types of governments. I know recent news here, we had a Castro down in Cuba died, and so there's been a clash of cultures. Some people saying, "Oh, look how great it was," and others how bad it was. But the reality of the Cuba situation is they had they had the revolution back in 1959, 60 when it was, and the people uh, were not any better off than they were before, and that's because of the system. Um, so there's different things. Capitalism is probably the best system. There might be another system that hasn't been developed yet that much better. But when you get into situations, and that's part of why the communist system, the Soviet Union collapsed, was because of the government owned everything for the most part. And when the government is running things, people don't have incentives anymore to. I mean, some people they do great jobs, but when you lack a method of incentivizing people, that's, another version of economics, why things don't work. That's why even in our government, things like the VA system, um, it ain't that there isn't good people working that are brought in, but it's, when you have systems that there's no incentivization, there's no, I don't know what you would call fear of not doing a good job or something like that. And I've personally witnessed that, like, when I was in the military and the army versus I had civilians working for me at some times and great people. Then there's others that it's just a job or it's not my job, or you got different attitudes that go on too. So there's a lot of things that go into why one system might work, another system doesn't work, and so forth. So just a lot of things that go in there. So then that's a lot of what's in this chapter is the traditional system, how things work, how it gets figured out. Um, there's one slide I wanted to show you down here, but we also got lots of graphs and charts and things like that. But don't let them overwhelm you. Don't let that get you going or anything, because we can figure it out if you're having any problems with it. And what I want to show, well, maybe it's further up, but anyway, what I was going to tell you about is where one of the things about government having a balanced budget versus not having that's one of the prime requirements of a good economic system, is where government has a balanced budget. They're not operating, they're not in debt. Over the past 10 years, our government's it's tripled, almost 4 times the debt that it was originally 10 years ago. You went from like 1 trillion to 4 trillion. A lot of politicians will, depending on what side of the political beliefs you're on, but a lot of politicians turn that around and say, "Oh, look at we fixed our deficit." But if you're still $4 trillion in debt, you haven't fixed anything. You're still in debt. Apply those. When you hear examples like that, if a politician tells you an example of something, apply it to your own personal life and see if it would work. You know, um, if you're $40,000 in debt, 10 years ago you were 10,000. Today you're 40,000. Are you better off? Um, so that's a different way to look at it. But okay, so enough rambling by me here. I was trying to find, there was a quote in here, but that's basically what it was. Is um, government should operate on a balanced budget, not being in debt. So, okay, so I will leave that there. And the discussion, homework, same thing as last week. So just keep doing what you're doing. Those of you that are not been active, you need to get in there and get caught up. And with that, I will leave you alone. I'll give you my test question picture here. So I know you watched the video. So just tell me what's going on in this picture. Those of you who don't know me or don't, I was in the Army for like 20 something years. So spent a lot of time in Asia, and the family got to go on, was stationed over there in Okinawa for a while. So, okay, so there you go. Just answering the reply, what's going on in this picture here. And with that, I will let you all go. Have a great week. If you have questions, get in touch. And I know some of you might be new with me, but you can text me, use the inbox system, and you can even call me pretty much 7 days a week, and I get back pretty quickly. So, or I just answer right away. So that's it. Have a great week. Get in touch if you need anything. Take care, everybody.